In this video, our goal is to use proportions to solve percentage problems. Now, in our first example, we have that a softball team has won 95% of their 120 games played. How many games is that? So what we're looking for is what is 95% of 120. Now, you've solved problems like this before using the decimal method. And what I mean by that is that you've turned your percentage into a decimal and multiplied it by your subtotal to find your 95% of 120. So again, what we would usually do is divide 95% by 100. This would give us 0.95. I would then take this decimal 0.95 and multiply it by 120, which is my subtotal in this example. So when I solve for this, my 120 times 0.95, I get 114. So what that means is 114 games played, or games won in this example, is that 95% that we're looking for. Now we're going to try using a different method in order to solve the same problem. So we already know that our answer is 114, but instead what we'll be doing this time is using proportions to solve this problem. So the first thing you have to remember is that a fraction always represents parts over the whole. And as a quick example, we know that 95% is part of 100%. Now, where proportions come in is I know that there is a number that is 95% of 120. I know 120 is 100% of the games that they've played. But I don't know what 95% of 120 is quite yet. So because I don't know what that is, I'm going to leave this as a variable x. And this x represents what 95% of the games are. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use scale factor in order to solve this problem. So the first thing I'll need to figure out is what do I have to multiply 100 by to get to 120? Because that'll be my scale factor. And if I can solve for that, I can figure out what I multiply 95 by so that I can get my 95% of the games. So just like the beginning of the year, what we're going to do is we are going to multiply 100 times something, or our scale factor, to equal 120. I'll divide both sides by 100. 100 cancels out. And if I solve this 120 divided by 100, I get that my scale factor is just 1.2. So I know that I multiplied 100 by 1.2, and I'll have to do the same to 95 in order to find out what 95% of 120 games are. So I can double check my math by multiplying on this calculator. So I have 1.2 times that 95, and I still get 114 games. So I get that x is equal to 114. Now, in our next example, you're going to notice pretty quickly that we can't use the decimal method. Here we have that there are 42 students who have green eyes. You are told that this is 60% of the 7th grade. How many students are in the 7th grade? Now, in this example, you're going to notice right away that the decimal method does not work. And that's because we know that 42 students makes up that 60% of the students with green eyes. We don't know what 100% is, so we can't really multiply this percentage by 42 because it wouldn't give us what 60% of the student body is. So this is where proportions come in. Now, luckily, I know that we're working with 60%. I know my denominator is always going to be 100% because percentages are always compared to 100. I do know that 42 students make up 60% of the student body, or at least the 7th graders. But I don't know how many 7th graders there are. I don't know what 100% of the 7th graders are. So again, just like last time, I'm going to use scale factor in order to solve this problem. Now the first thing that I'll do, I'm going to draw my arrows. I always draw it towards the variable. Now I know that 60 times something will give me 42. If I solve using scale factor, I'll divide both sides by 60. And I'm going to get that my scale factor, that 42 divided by 60 is going to give me 0.7. So my scale factor is 7/10. So I'm going to multiply both my numerator and my denominator by 7/10. And when I do that, when I multiply 7/10 by 100, I'm going to get that 77th graders go to that school. So I know that x is equal to 70. In my next example, I have that 13 out of 65 students are absent today. What percentage of students are absent? Now in this example, it's really quick to see that you can't use the decimal method because we just don't have a percent. We know that there's 13 out of 65 students, but we don't know what percent of students are absent. So again, just like last time, we're going to create a proportion. So I know that it's 13 out of 65. This is the part of the students that are here, this 13. And the 65 that's over here is 100% of the students. Now, I don't know what percentage this is, but I do know we always compare percentages to 100. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to find a scale factor between 65 and 100 because that'll tell me what I can multiply 13 by to find the percentage of the students that are absent. So what I'm going to do is I know that 65 times something equals 100. I'll divide both sides by 65, and I'll check my scale factor. Again, we have 100 divided by 65, and that gives me this long decimal. Now I'm going to just say that this is about 1.54 because I'll have to round right here. You see that 8, we know we're going to have to round, times 1.54. So I'm going to directly multiply this in my calculator by 13. So 13 times 1.54 is going to give me 20. So I know that 20% of the students are absent today because there are 13 out of 65 students who are absent. I hope you reached your goal of using proportions to solve for percentage problems. If you need any extra assistance, always feel free to email. Thank you.